name is Ojeni Touma. I'm 24 years old. I'm Palestinian. I was born and raised in San Diego, California. I still live here now. I'm a recent graduate from SDSU. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology just about a year ago now. My goals are to go to med school at some point, and just for the time being, I'd like to get some pre-hospital experience. I'm currently a 911 EMT for the city of San Diego. So I provide emergency care and transport to emergency rooms via ambulance. It's kind of like the job that I do right now. Other than that, I'm also on the board of two organizations in San Diego. The first one is the House of Palestine, which is a part of International Cottages in Balboa Park. So there's many cottages that represent different countries, and they're all physical or non-physical houses. And we're currently in the process of building our physical cottage, which is super exciting. We've been fundraising and campaigning for almost 20 years now to get that built. And it'll serve as a place for the public to come and be educated on Palestine, as well as like experience our beautiful culture and our heritage. And then the second organization I'm on the board of is, of course, the San Diego chapter of the ADC. So I serve as outreach coordinator, and currently we've been working on a media campaign similar to what ADC National is doing. That's been extremely successful in putting local Arab Americans in the spotlight and making our community more visible. So I try and mesh my job as a first responder as well as my outreach and my political and my social justice, and I kind of mesh them all together and kind of try and accomplish the same things via all the work that I do. I'm very passionate about medicine. I'm also passionate about social and political justice. And as I think it stemmed definitely from my background. And as a child, I saw firsthand the oppression and racism that Palestinians face on their own land in Palestine. And it made me want to fight for all people who experience injustice, especially what I see in the United States, like Black people in the United States, simply trying to live their lives. Asian Americans right now facing bigotry and prejudice in the pandemic, Mexican and Central and South American immigrants facing wildly different standards and treatment than immigrants from other countries. I'm a very firm believer that none of us are free until we're all free. And so it's a passion of mine to educate people and to work towards a more just and fair society, not just here in the United States, but also in Palestine. It's a mission of mine to treat all people the same, regardless of any differentiating factors. So the reason that I am so passionate about social and political justice is because I have an intense desire to help people. Which is exactly why I have such a passion for medicine, and why I really enjoy my current job as a first responder. So as a young kid, I saw the struggle that my immigrant parents were going through, as they have had a food business for my entire life, and they were 50% of their own workforce. And I remember having to wait for them after school to pick me up, and then being confused on why other kids didn't have to wait, but I didn't realize that my parents were working such long hours. And I remember my dad always telling me to tell my parents that like we spoke English at home, not Arabic, and that I was white and not Palestinian, because he didn't want us to face discrimination. And I think currently a lot of people, especially like you said, marginalized group who get the short end of the stick, I have come into contact with patients who are worried and scared to go to the emergency room because they don't want to face discrimination. They think that they're not going to get treated. Initially, when I first show up at somebody's house, often the very first thing that they tell me is, I have insurance. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll take care of you whether or not you have insurance. It's not going to make a difference for me, and hopefully not at the hospital, although I know sometimes that it does. This pandemic has kind of turned everything up to a whole new level. And I recently moved out, but I was living with my family up until a couple of days ago, and I was terrified that I would expose them. That's definitely a big fear. I've learned a lot. I've learned that we as healthcare personnel and as first responders, we have to take care of ourselves. I can't take care of anybody else if I'm not taking care of myself, and if I'm not in the physical and mental headspace to take care of anybody. So that's really important. There's been a lot of resources given to us at work in terms of like mental health, physical health, and they've been pushing to kind of stay on top of those things. But I've learned that we take a lot of things for granted, for sure, for such as being able to visit family in the hospital, which we can't really do right now. And I've seen a lot of people, family members of people that I'm transporting, they'll beg me to go in the ambulance, and I can't take them. And it's really heartbreaking. So what I've learned is that we really need to be grateful for kind of like the normal things that we don't think could ever be taken away from us, but kind of are right now. And to just appreciate those things a little bit more. I'm a very big believer that therapy is really important. Like, just like we see a doctor for our physical health, we should see a doctor for our mental health as well. And my employer has offered different avenues that are always available, but they made them a lot, much more accessible, and have been pushing them a lot more during the pandemic. There are some apps that have made given the opportunity for first responders to kind of get free subscriptions for mental health and things like that. And so I have tapped into those resources. It definitely helps. Talking to somebody who is really unaware of what you go through is helpful, because I think you have to explain it and you have to analyze it yourself, and it helps you break it down. Also, talking to coworkers and peer support personnel has been really important for me, because on the other hand, they understand what you're going through. Eating properly, exercising is important for mental health in general, but it also right now is a really big outlet for me to make sure that my brain is working at like full capacity, and that I am able to take care of me, and then I can take care of other people. It is a legitimate fear. I initially was a lot, it was hyped up that you could get it so easily, and you really can. I think I personally, my fear has declined the longer that we've been going through this. I take the necessary steps, and that helps me not be afraid. I'm more afraid of being somebody who exposes other people who might not have built up the immunity that I've built up by being at my job. So that is more of the fear that I have. It's something that I think, very traditional Arabs will say, like, oh, the woman should stay home. Because I have had family members or community members be like, oh, you want to be a trauma surgeon? Why don't you be a nurse? Nurses are godsends, but it's not what I want to do. I want to be a trauma surgeon. And so the fact that it's discounted by a lot of people who are just like, set your standards a little bit lower for yourself, I refuse to accept that. And I think a lot of, not even Arab women or Palestinian women, but just women in general, are kind of told to make themselves smaller. And we're not really, it's as if people don't trust us with the workload that we've placed on ourselves. But I'm confident in myself that I'm going to achieve absolutely everything that I put my mind to. And it 100% has to do with the fact that I am Palestinian, because we are some of the most driven and headstrong people. And when we put our minds to something, like, we will accomplish it. And I just really want people to know that Palestinians, we're simply trying to live our lives in peace. And that's what we're trying to achieve here in the United States, scattered all over the world, in diaspora, in Palestine especially. And as a social activist, that's exactly what I'm trying to achieve, is peace and justice and a more fair world for marginalized groups, for minority groups. And at the same time, we know that it's going to come at a great personal cost. And we know this from well-publicized activists being arrested or assassinated, to not so personalized sacrifices, somebody refusing to hire you for your beliefs. It's definitely difficult, but ultimately, my love for my heritage and my people supersedes all of that. And I know that my personal goal is to be the representation that I felt I didn't have as a kid. You know, now we have Rashida Tlaib, and we have exactly, like, we have all these, it's really not as much representation as other groups have, but it's all we have, and so we cling to it. It's big name people who are in positions of power now, and I don't want that. I don't want to be in a position of power. I don't want to be necessarily like a big name. I just want to be somebody that I can stay in these organizations, and younger members can be like, look, she's Palestinian and she's a trauma surgeon. She's grown up through these organizations, and she understands what it is to be a marginalized woman. And I just want to be able to lead other people via my experience, because I didn't have that. And it definitely taught me a valuable lesson navigating it myself, but it absolutely would have been so nice to have somebody to look up to. Something that ADC San Diego is really trying to rectify within our community. So like I said, we've been working on media campaigns, and we just actually yesterday or the day before, we had a whole page dedicated to Arab Americans in San Diego in the Union Tribune, which is the local San Diego newspaper. So Doris Bitar, like the head of the San Diego chapter, Amar Kardan, who is a VP of Illumina in San Diego, a research company, as well as Dr. Ra'el Belnasser, who is a pulmonologist at Sharp Grossmont here. So that's the representation that we've been fighting for, is that subtle representation that doesn't have to do with war, it doesn't have to do with famine. They're not asking us questions about conflict. It's purely us living our lives and being subtly mentioned, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for doing this, and for giving people the chance to be vocal and to explain our stories, and to be that representation. And so I wouldn't have this opportunity if you didn't give it. So thank you very much. And I do really appreciate it.